Hello, everybody. This is Kazuma Kuranagi. Today I'm going to talk about my case presentation, chapter 3. All right. I have a question in my hand. I'm just going to read it right now. So the first question is, East Coast Yachts uses a small percentage of preferred stock as a source of financing in calculating the ratios for the company. Should preferred stock be included as part of the company's total equity? Okay, so my answer here is that in calculating the ratios of the company, the preferred stock inclusion is a debatable issue. That it has a fixed return. So its return is not interest, but dividend. So tax shield is absent, and the preference shareholders don't have priority like debt holders. So the guiding principle become the objective of calculating the receptive ratio. For example, if the objective is to know the financial solvency, the preference share should be included in the equity, whereas if the purpose is of evaluating the gearing effect of the fixed dividend on the earning, it should be a part of debt. Okay, the second question, calculate all of the ratios listed in the industry table for East Coast yachts. Here, all the ratios are listed and calculation with the numbers right here. This is everything bossy here, so I'm not gonna read it. I hope you professor can review it right here. Current ratio. This is my second pages of ratios. All the ratios, 12 ratios are listed here. For the third question, compare the performance of East Coast yachts to the industry as a whole. For each ratios, comment on why it may be viewed as positive or negative relative to the industry. Suppose you create an industry ratio calculated as inventory dividend by current liabilities. How would you interpret this ratio? How does East Coast yachts compare to the industry average for this ratio? Okay. So the liquidity ratio of East Coast is below the industry average for current ratio. This means that its liquidity is lower as compared to industry. However, the current ratio is above the lower quartile. And this indicates that there are companies with still lower liquidity than the industry. The turnover ratios are all higher than the industry median. The ratios are all in above quartile. This would imply that East Coast is more efficient in the use of assets as compared to industry average. So this is positive, okay? And the financial leverage ratios are all below the industry median, though they're above the lower quartile. This implies that East Coast yet has less debt than the industry average companies. This is positive. The profit margin for the company is about the same as the industry median. The return on asset is slightly higher than the industry median, and the return on equity is quite above the industry median. So the East Coast yachts seem to be performing well in the profitability area. This is positive. So overall, East Coast yachts performance seems really good, although the liquidity ratios indicate that a closer look may be needed in this area. Inventory divided by current liabilities, these ratios would imply the amount of current liabilities that can be paid from the sale of inventory. The ratio for East Coast is 0.31. Since the industry average is not known for this ratio, it cannot be compared. Okay, moving on to question 4. Calculate the sustainable growth rate for East Coast yachts. Calculate external funds needed, EFN, and prepare pro forma income statements and balance sheets, assuming growth at precisely this rate. They calculate the ratios in the previous question, and also what do I observe? Okay, so to start all this calculation, I had to have this sustainable growth rate, SGR, can be calculated by return on equity times retention ratio. So this is posted right here, net income, dividend, all that, and I apply these numbers, and this is 27.22% times 56.66% equal 15.42%. So sustainable growth rate is right here. Okay, I'm moving on to balance sheet. Here's a balance sheet, all wrapped up in one sheet right here. This comparison of 2017 and 2018. And to calculate 2018's numbers, I use this 15.42% right here plus 1. So that will calculate everything right here. The same as here, this is the second page of balance sheet. It's a current liabilities, 2017, and this is 2080 as well right here. This is income statement. This is looking good, 2017, and I use this SGR as well to calculate 2018's numbers. And it looks like it retained, they're gaining a lot of sales and growth in sales right here in 2018. This is all the recalculation of ratios. And I'm going to give you an observation of each ratios. So this current ratio indicates a capacity to meet core operating obligations with the uncashable assets over assets lower than average firms in the industry. This quick ratio indicates the capacity to meet core operating obligations with more readily encashable assets is also lower than average firms in the industry. Total asset turnover 1.64. It is a dollars sales generated per dollars of assets, far ahead of industry peers, indicating best asset utilization. Inventory turnover 23.47 is number of times inventory is converted to sales in a year is also above par, indicating best inventory management. Okay, sounds good. Receivable turnover. This is number of times receivables are converted to cash in a year is also above par, indicating best receivable management. Okay, debt ratio. It is simple. Level of debt in financing the asset is almost. This is almost on par with average in industry, and it's close near to the median figure. And coming down, debt equity ratio. So this 1.17 confirms the above observation of 0.54 debt ratio. And also this equity multiplier confirms the above two observation of these two kinds of debt ratios on the top. And profit margin, actually this is interest coverage. It's 8, almost similar to average firms in median interest expenses with the income just before charging the same. Profit margin, it is dollars. Net income made per dollars of sale is above average. It's right here, 8.30%, and also it's more nearer to the made by upper range firms. Okay, ROA, return on assets, 13.59% is in dollar. Net income made per dollar of average assets utilized and is above average. So it is more nearer to that made by upper range firms. Finally, return on equity is 29.44%. This indicates dollars net income made per dollars of average equity funds utilized. Surplus is the best in the industry. So this is really looking good. Okay, so as of my final comments, except liquidity, um, except liquidity, I'm sorry, uh, is it seems to be somewhat average or and below median values provided. So all of the other metrics are sufficiently satisfactory. Those are asset utilization, profitability above average as per industry norms. Also, financing patterns and debt servicing are almost as per average industry peers. Okay, we're going to question number 5. Uh, question number 5 is, as a practical matter, East Coast yet is unlikely to be willing to raise external equity capital, in part because the shareholders don't want to dilute their existing ownership in a control positions. However, East Coast yet is planning for a growth rate of 20% next year. What are your conclusion and recommendation about the feasibility of East Coast expansion plan? All right, there we go. So there are other methods to raise capital apart from equity sales. Since the debt to equity ratio in this case is less than 1, and it is between, i.e. between 0.44 to 0.61, which means that there is a possibility to raise debt and fuel the growth. So in the presentation, there's the numbers right here. So long-term debt is 40,100,000, and shareholders' equity is 66,180,900. As you look at these, hence, the company can raise debt to fund the growth. Alternatively, the company has healthy financials and is earning before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, and profit after tax positive. So therefore, it can use its existing cash reserves of 66,180,900 to fund the growth capital requirements. That's the answer for number 5. We're moving on to number 6. The question is, as a practical, okay, this is, I don't have that. Okay, so number 6. I have this right here, all these calculations in the 2 slides. Okay, let's see. So I assume that to increase production, the company must set up an entirely new line at the cost of $5,000, first of all. Then we still have projected total equity of this number right here, 10,995,901. On the asset side, current assets still increase spontaneously with sales, but fixed assets increase by a fixed amount of $5 million. So here, projected total assets, there's a calculation right here, and it ends up 22,615,623, and this indicates that, well, we're assuming that that level remain the same. The external financing need is a difference between projected total assets and projected total liabilities and equities. Okay, so now I calculated EFN. It is 3,796,672. So therefore, this number, if the company sales increase at 12%, it has external financing needs of 3,796,672. This is the number right here. Okay, let me move this. So currently the sales to fixed asset ratio is current sales to fixed asset. Well, this is a calculation right here. I'm sorry. This is 2.0 375. And in projection, the sales to fixed assets ratio is 2.00. Okay. Since we assume that company is operating at full capacity now, that full capacity sales to fixed assets ratio should be 2.371. This is what the number indicates, okay? Hence, therefore, we have this capacity utilization of 85%. So for all of these, this implies that company will be operating at 85% capacity next year. So overall, East Coast, yes, making a really great growth and looking for the next year. And this is really looking good. And these are answers for my case presentations. Thank you for listening. I will see you guys soon.